right, since we had you here, Andre, I was wanted to really have your take on this, especially since you're a fan of Red Sonya. You like the sword and sorcery
I do.
adventure
Yeah.
genre. I enjoy it quite myself. I usually don't. My 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 story with Conan was more from the movies. I appreciated the books and the comics later, but I had a somebody that I stayed with. It was a Cuban family, and he would have me. I was very young at the time. He would have me watch Conan, as I ate like breakfast with them. But being a true Cuban, he would literally talk throughout the whole movie, explaining everything that was going on. Everything was like, "Mira, chico, le sacaron la familia y ahora lo van a matar a todo." And it was like, okay, got it. He's gonna kill everybody. Maybe not the best childhood for a kid, but yes, I think it was the best childhood for a kid. But this is an adjacent for those people who don't know Red Sonja. Can you introduce to our audience who Red Sonja is, so this article might resonate a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. Red Sonja, she was originally a character created by Robert E. Howard, who also created Conan the Barbarian, and he wrote her for a non-Conan story. He wrote her for a story called The Shadow of the Vulture, which was set in 16th century Europe. And in this story, Red Sonja was a gunslinger, a Ukrainian gunslinger, because this was 16th century. And then, when Roy Thomas adapted the Conan stories for Marvel Comics, he also got the right to adapt the other Robert D. Howard stories. So what he did was he took his other stories and other characters and he changed them into Conan stories, and he set them in the Hyborian Age, the Age of Conan. And that way, in the retelling, then Red Sonja of Rogatin, a Ukrainian gunslinger, became Red Sonja, the swordswoman set in the Hyborian Age. And for the first few years, she had no origin story. She was just a really badass woman with a sword. She was kind of like a female Conan. The chainmail that she's wearing here, that actually came in later. That she didn't have that in her first appearance. It was
Oh,
actually a
okay.
Spanish author or a Spanish animator that
Huh.
drew that on her. So that's a Spanish invention.
Always blame the Spanish for skimpy bikinis, right?
Yeah. Originally, she had like an ordinary chainmail. You see there, that's her first appearance. That's how she originally was
Right.
created. That's what you have right there. And then in the second one is when she got her iconic chainmail. And then several years later, an origin story was retrofitted in. And this origin story was that she had been, have to be careful here, she had been raped, gang raped, and then a god basically gave her super sword wielding powers, but in exchange for that, she couldn't be with a man unless he bested her in battle first. So that was
Hmm.
relatively late in the character, but that kind of was what happened when the movie was made. So that made it into the original movie from 1985. And then the character got her own comics and stuff like that until Marvel stopped publishing them, and then the character was separated into a separate legal entity away from the Conan Enterprise, and
Right.
then that was sold off, and the comic book rights were then handed to Dark Horse around 2004, 2005, there or so. And they then changed it and they all retconned away this rape origin story. And then they have made more changes throughout that. It's become like more more feminist in a way. It still maintained the look. She always looked like what she does right now, but it was written by Gail Simone with everything that comes with it. Not bad stories per se, but it became more about female empowerment in a way that it hadn't always been before. Because the Red Sonya comics, they had always been, she was always a really, really badass woman, but they
Right.
weren't thematically feminist. That is something that came in later.
So you would
And
say that. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and that is really necessary context to understand the quote here from Matilda Lutz, which, and the context also behind this is that she was at the red carpet and she was promoting another movie altogether when she got the microphone in her face, asked to comment on Red Sonja, and then she's going to repeat what she has been drilled to say about Red Sonja, because there's not a lot she can say. She's not allowed to talk. I would imagine that she's not allowed to talk about the movie unless the studio has approved. And if she does, here are the talking points. What we're seeing here is the talking points. And what she said is, let's see if you can, because again, the key words that come out here is basically very women empowered, no male gaze and stuff like that. Sounds really horrible. You got to understand these are studio quotes. Let's see if you can find the entire quote. There's a little bit further down, because yeah, you have the headlines like this, and I understand the headlines. There's a context here. Let's see what she said. Is that pressed by Smith because she got the microphone shoved in her face for any and everything, anything she could tease. And then came the standard practice bullet point. So what I can tell you is that the first ones and the comics were made with a very male-gazed orientation. This is not what you would call untrue. Like, there's more to it, but it's not wholly untrue. Yeah, in the
Right.
original movie, Red Sonja is basically covered up throughout. There's very little male gaze in that one. But you saw some of the imagery from the original comics from the 70s. I mean, you can't deny, like, this is something of a statement of fact. And then moving on, other than the male gaze, this is a completely different story. It's very women empowered, which I loved about the script. So basically, here she alternatively could have said, this is like the comics of the last 20 years. Because that's what the comics have been the last 20 years. They have changed the origin story, but then so did the comics of the last 20 years. They retconned away the retcons. Remember that origin story, which may be one of the bigger changes, that itself was a retcon. She was created without an origin story. So as you can hear, I am not overtly concerned about these comments. Like, I hope the movie will be fine.
Right.
I know that it's going to be fine. It could be horrible. Maybe we'll learn something tomorrow to suggest that it really is horrible, in which case I will come out and say it. But as it is, I think that this quote, because it contains keywords which we have learned to associate with red flags for very good reason. And there are some red flags with this production, but I am not so worried about this. We do have a video coming here relatively soon where we'll be expanding on this in much more detail. But I'm not very worried from this thing right here. It's the wrong thing to say. It is horrible keywords, but I'm not too worried. And it's because of the director I'm not too worried. Like, for instance, this movie right here, it will actually have the chainmail bikini. And that's because of the director who brought that in. And that chainmail has never been seen in live action before. And this will be Red Sonja's third live action appearance, first with the chainmail bikini. That's got to count for something.
That is totally good. The funny thing that always puzzled me with this, and hey Pablo, ¿cómo estás,
hey
loco?
brother, what's up, Andre?
Hey.
But the funny thing is about this, they never complained that Conan is always in a loincloth.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like,
She is the one who's more conservatively dressed than him.
right. I mean,
She
he's
at least
walking
has.
around, yeah.
I believe at this point, they really need is some social media training, because they are falling in the same mistakes that they have been for the last decade at this point, of trying to talk about empowerment and everything. And we had a recent situation with Chani on Dune, that they basically completely changed the character. They ruined the character because they wanted to make her empowered instead of, I don't know, the religious head of her tribe, as she was on the book. So there's that in every single thing that you see right now. And since it's kind of hype and you are talking to the media, you are repeating the same points and you are giving exactly the same vibes as we are changing this character because we didn't like the original. Well, why are you making anything with this character then? Why didn't you pick another character? They should be instead trying to give the same vibe as if they were remaking Sheena, Princess Warrior.
Yeah.
That we have this really cool character. She is a woman that is really strong, really incredible, and really sexy. And you need to emphasize that really sexy. So you get that. If you don't remember, Sheena the Princess Warrior, she's bisexual.
Yeah.
Actually, she ends up in a romantic relationship with a woman and dying and being reborn again, and the ending is kind of stupid. But yeah,
spoiler, Bob.
oh, for Sina the warrior princess, I think everybody knew the ending because you get that nice sex scene. The the final episodes got a lot of attention because of that. But you need to emphasize that. And if you remember, in the 90s, they were emphasizing that Sina was really strong, really powerful, but she was sexy.
Right.
And let's be honest, men will gravitate to that. You can see on social media right now, there's that war between this woman is too masculine or not masculine enough. Well, the amount of attention should tell you that people like tomboys, people like women that are really, really, really strong, just not obnoxious feminist types.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a bit of social media training. It's just knowing if you are going to talk about empowerment, talk about her sexiness. If you are talking about how strong she is, you also need to give away something that also is a bit not male gazy, but just male enticing. And when you get that combination, people will gravitate naturally. Just follow the obvious trends on social media, just follow the obvious psychology behind that, and avoid saying just one side to the press, because it will point to the current situation with almost all the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like we have a very big disconnect between the art that is being produced, and then you have the art that it's supposed to be, and they're like, oh, we're going to take this art, we're going to put it into a different medium. But now it goes through the grinder of a checklist, and people that are not necessarily known for their art taking it and basically saying, yeah, but we have to include all this stuff, but yeah, so I guess it does say that she was trying to that even in, I mean, it reads, I mean, it was a thing, like even in costume rehearsals and building the whole costume was like, I feel very exposed, but what I love about it is that the bikini is used in a completely different way from the comics. So I'm excited to see what the audience is going to think, which is funny because it's like, you know, you have the audience that is looking, it has an idea in their mind what this is going to be. You know, I mean, she said, I feel good enough to wear something that was used for purpose and also just really connected with MJ, the director. So we always talked about how I was feeling, and, you know, we built the costume in the costume prep process. It was always like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? So we built it together. I always feel like I was part of the process, and now look, just, you're going to wear this and, you know, bye. This is good. It looks like this director actually cared for the feelings of the actor and really wanted to highlight it and let her feel comfortable, because if she's not comfortable in the costume, that's not gonna fly. You're gonna notice it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you basically need to get she needs to feel good so she can be convincing, as fierce and confident on screen.
Right.
If you know a bit of my background, I was a cosmaker. I was a prop maker at one point. And, well, there's a secret about cosplays and about costumes for any kind of production. No costume is really comfortable. Even the nice suits for, let's say, James Bond, not really comfortable. Needs to look really nice on screen, so it's a tight fit with some parts of the costume that will dig and shape a bit if you move too much. But the actor needs to know that it's part of the role, it's part of the job, so they need to take the shaping. They need to take a bit of damage, because if you want the costume to look really good, it will be a bit of suffering. I did a Slave Leia costume that was quite screen accurate, and that meant that it needed to look like the woman that was using the costume was almost nude or nude underneath. It was a really complicated system of strings. Actually, she was covered underneath the suit, but it was a piece of metal on the loin that should have been really painful. But she was on the costume 6 hours at the time, because, well, she wanted to look like Leia. She wanted to walk on the event like Leia, so she had to suffer. It's just that sometimes this is not the same as buying a nice suit because you want to look and feel nice. This is directly, you will suffer for the art. And trust me, you will suffer. You are a man, you will suffer. You are a woman, you will be overly exposed and you will suffer. If you are going with a Conan costume, you will suffer. And you will be really uncomfortable with a cloth loin that is digging on your balls. That's life. Sorry, that's life. So this of she needed to feel comfortable. I'm not really believing it. She should be a professional. She should know this. I don't believe that. I don't remember. Forgot the worst part is really near from the character's name, but Ripley from Aliens.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe she was really comfortable going around.
Tiny underwear.
Yeah. And in
Actually, she's the one
metal.
who wanted that, I think, in the movie. Like they tried to make her. Yeah, they tried to make her wear larger underwears. They didn't have to like digitally or even pre-digitally have to like scrub out her pubic hair peeking out and stuff like that. But no, she was the one who insisted on the microscopic underwear, apparently.
That's great. That's the
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah.